The more you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, the more you spot. Here's a roundup of some of the wild Easter eggs and details Marvel hid in the movie. Early in the movie, Wade Wilson makes a jump over to Earth 616, which is the primary timeline for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. On March 14, 2018, he has a meeting with Happy Hogan, though he was hoping it would be a meeting with Tony Stark. But as Happy indicates, Stark doesn't really take these kinds of meetings anymore.
He doesn't do this kind of thing anymore.
Cameos?
Meetings.
If you look around the office, there are several Easter eggs referencing the Avengers and the legacy of Iron Man. The most obvious items belong to Iron Man, such as the Silver Mark II armor helmet on a shelf behind Happy, as well as a proof that Tony Stark has a heart arc reactor gift that Pepper Potts made for him. The armor suitcase from Iron Man 2 sits on a shelf behind Wade. There's also a toy version of an Iron Man helmet, which sits in front of the photo of Tony Stark and Peter Parker from Spider-Man Homecoming. Strangely, we can't see Tom Holland in the photo, possibly because it would technically count as an appearance in the MCU that would potentially mess up the actor's contractual obligations. As for the Avengers, it's Captain America who gets the most love here. Behind Happy, you can see the vintage Captain America trading cards that once belonged to Agent Phil Coulson, though that's probably more of a reminder of their fallen friend than Cap himself.
It's a vintage set. Took me a couple of years to collect them all.
Either way, the prototype Captain America shield that can be seen in Stark's lab in Iron Man 2 is sitting proudly in the window of the office as well. Even in 2018, when Stark was still on the outs with Rogers after Civil War, he kept mementos of his friend and ally. While Deadpool is time-hopping and trying to find a new Wolverine variant to replace the deceased Logan as the anchor being of Earth 10005, he encounters the classic Wolverine in his tan and brown suit. While the suit doesn't match Wolverine's first appearance in the Incredible Hulk comic book, it's this matchup that makes it an Easter egg for Avengers fans, because Hulk is standing right there ready to slam Deadpool into a tree. Also, even though this isn't an Avengers Easter egg, we have to mention that Wade is traveling through the multiverse to the tune of Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, which is clearly meant to be a nod to the time-traveling classic Back to the Future, where the song was written for the film's soundtrack. You're going to find the most Easter eggs just sitting around the void from the Loki TV series. Aside from the ensemble of X-Men villains who have been pruned from their timeline, as well as the obvious appearances of Giant Man's corpse and the 20th Century Fox logo, there are a bunch of vehicles and objects lying around, just like in Loki. Here's a breakdown of the stuff that we caught around the void. First, when all of Cassandra Nova's henchmen arrive with Pyro, among their vehicles is Red Skull's custom car from Captain America, the First Avenger, the vintage comic book version of the flying Fantastic car that belongs to Fantastic Four, and the cupcake truck from an early episode of Moon Knight. One of the vehicles is also sporting a flag with the Avengers logo on it, but the A has been spray painted with the A for Anarchy. After their arrival, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Johnny Storm are taken to the Giant Man lair, which is a super gross residence when you think about it. This is also when Wade mistakenly thinks Johnny Storm is actually Captain America, since it's Chris Evans. He expects Evans to say, "Avengers Assemble!" before he actually shouts Storm's catchphrase. Honestly, it ends up being infinitely more exciting than an alternate Captain America. There are also plenty of items discarded in the desert of the void, just waiting for you to notice them. Early on, just before Wolverine and Deadpool engage in their first fight with each other, you can see the classic versions of Thor's winged silver helmet and Captain America's World War II era shield. Also, during that confrontation, you'll spot a Secret Wars comic book just sitting in the dirt next to Wade, obviously a nod to what's on the way in the MCU. From 2012's Avengers, we've got both the Chitauri Leviathan creature and what looks a whole lot like the SHIELD helicarrier. Plus, there's part of the Stark Industries tower lying around. That's not the only Avengers franchise Easter egg either, because you can see Thanos' Q ship from Infinity War, the one piloted by Ebony Maw after he takes Doctor Strange hostage in an effort to get a hold of the Time Stone. Speaking of cosmic stuff, another ship you'll find partially buried in the dirt is the Milano, the ship which belonged to the Guardians of the Galaxy crew. You'll also spot the spires of Odin's palace from Asgard, seen frequently in the Thor franchise. While this may not be an Avengers Easter egg, there's a huge chunk of the Golden Gate Bridge seen in the background. We're just going to assume that's from the climax of X-Men The Last Stand, when Magneto moves the bridge with his mutant powers. Finally, we've got two Doctor Strange Easter eggs popping up in the void too. The first comes in the lair where Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and X-23 have holed up. Part of the structure is the same wall sculpture of Scarlet Witch seen in the third act of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But beyond that, Cassandra Nova reveals that she took the sling ring of an amateur magician who came to the Void, and this assumed that it belonged to Doctor Strange. Deadpool confirms as much when he says the Doctor's last name before commenting on the circle it creates. Before we get to some of the other big references and callbacks in Deadpool and Wolverine, we're going to take a detour with a little Easter egg tribute that Ryan Reynolds included for a movie that he loves. In fact, this movie greatly influenced Reynolds' career and even the trajectory of Deadpool and Wolverine. First, there's a repeated Easter egg that Reynolds injected into the first two Deadpool movies, and that's the appearance of a certain fictional book called The Canadian Mounted.
Come in. Hey, just doing a little bit of light reading here.
It's a trashy, erotic novel that John Candy can be seen reading in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. While it's hard to spot, you can see it in Wade's locker at the car dealership he works at. Only the spine is visible, where it says The Northern Nymph, but that's the same book. However, Reynolds managed to fit in a much bigger Easter egg for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles this time around. After Wolverine and Deadpool escape from Cassandra Nova's fortress, they walk through a grassy field. And in that field lies what just looks like an innocuous destroyed car. But that vehicle is the burnt and wrecked car that Steve Martin and John Candy drive around for part of their road trip. Sitting in front of the car is the trunk that Candy's character carries around too. Reynolds hasn't been shy about how much he loves Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, a holiday classic directed by the late, great John Hughes. And he even chose the movie to air on Turner Classic Movies when he was given the honor of being a guest programmer recently.
I try to put something from Planes, Trains in almost everything I do.
We can't help but talk about some of the more amusing references that unfold when Deadpool and Wolverine meet the superheroes from other movies who have been banished to the Void. When Wesley Snipes appears as Blade, Ryan Reynolds does his best impression of the actor when questioning whether he was retired. After a hilarious exchange where Deadpool is worried about being cancelled, Blade tells Deadpool, "I don't like you," to which Wade responds, "You never did." In case you didn't know, this is alluding to the infamously contentious working relationship that Snipes and Reynolds had on the set of Blade Trinity. Once a conversation between our heroes comes around to some of the other characters who are in the Void, only to have been killed, Wade apologizes to Elektra when he learns that Daredevil is among the deceased. But in a hilarious reference to Garner's real-life marriage and divorce from Daredevil star Ben Affleck, she flippantly responds, "It's fine." But perhaps the best dialogue in this scene comes from Channing Tatum's Gambit, who constantly references the fact that he never got a chance to get his own movie and people may not even know about him. At one point, he even acknowledges that maybe he was just born in the Void, alluding to the X-Men Origins movie Tatum was supposed to star in before the poor reception of X-Men Origins Wolverine got the movie cancelled. X-23 also gets a nice callback beyond the obvious need for her experience from Logan to help convince the alternate Wolverine that he should be fighting with them. During the final fight sequence at Cassandra Nova's lair, she puts on the same sunglasses she wore as a kid in Logan. Finally, just when you thought we were done with Blade references, Blade gets a cool fight with the X-Men's Azazel and gets the chance to say what may be the most iconic line from his movies. You know the one.
Some motherfucker always trying to ice skate uphill.
Finally, if you were paying attention to the side-scrolling action sequence where Deadpool and Wolverine slice and dice through a bunch of Deadpool core members, then you might have missed a quick cameo by Stan Lee. Sadly, the Marvel Comics Legends is no longer with us, but that hasn't stopped Marvel Studios from paying tribute to him in their movies. Thankfully, without the use of CGI bringing him back to life, Deadpool and Wolverine includes a banner ad on the side of a bus for the carpet cleaning company Stan Lee Steamer. And the man pictured in the image is none other than Stan Lee himself. We wish we could still see him popping up for a quick one-liner, but we're glad that Marvel hasn't stooped so low that they'd use artificial intelligence, deepfakes, or whatever hellish technology being used to bring people back from the dead.